I just want to welcome Aaron onto the Care Corner podcast today, and thank you so much for joining us, Aaron. We're going to be talking about sustainability in the care sector, which obviously Oakland Care is really leading the way with. So really great to have you here.
Thanks very much, Rosie. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Aaron, and what your role is with Oakland Care and how you're participating in all of their sustainability projects?
Yeah, certainly. So my name's Aaron White. I am the Assistant Director for Sustainability and Corporate Services at Oakland Care. So I've quite a wide-ranging job. But over the last kind of 5 years or so, sustainability for us has become a huge talking point and a huge focus of our business. So it's become probably 50% of my job on a day-to-day basis. My background in the early days is in environmental management. It's how I qualified at university, etc. But I've worked in hospitality and care for kind of 20 years plus since then. And it's really nice now to see businesses starting to engage with sustainability and environmental action. So I've really been able to kind of put everything from my past into the modern workplace and lead all of those initiatives that we've done at Oakland Care over the last 5 years. So yes, it's been a great time.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's quite a pivotal, I guess, point in Oakland Care's mission statement actually is that point around environmental sustainability.
It is. It's become a real focus for us. We realise it's also become a little bit of a USP for us as well. That was never the intention setting out, but it has set us apart from some of our competitors a little bit, which we're very proud of. We're proud that it's definitely the right way for businesses to go. It's definitely what everybody should be doing. Lots of people don't know how to start or are struggling, with making meaningful change. But yeah, for us, it really is part of our mission now. It's actually part of our kind of company values as well. When we look to employ our team members, it's something that we look for, an interest in sustainability or certainly having the right mindset as well. So that as we grow the business, we grow it in a sustainable way overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the biggest things we've seen is that Oakland Care are really striving to become a net zero company by 2050. So talk us through what is that process like and setting your goals for net zero? How did you do all of that?
Yeah, it's net zero is a funny thing. It's a big scary kind of objective. And I think in some ways, the world, the country and the world don't really know exactly how that's going to come to fruition by 2050. But we're certainly committed to kind of going along at least the pace that the country needs us to, and if not a lot faster as well, to actually, kind of lead our sector through it. I would say firstly, with any kind of goals or strategy like that, it's probably important to say that's definitely not where we started. We started by building a culture and implementing sustainability kind of on the ground in our everyday working lives and kind of really building a community and an interest around sustainability, probably for a couple of years before we got anywhere near thinking about kind of mathematical based targets like net zero or carbon neutral or kind of carbon reduction. So it's only really in the last couple of years that we've truly focused on the carbon accounting side and therefore a pathway into net zero. And that's on purpose, because I think you have to really develop your team to be able to come along with you on those kind of strategies and those kind of targets. So starting with lots of the other smaller stuff that we'll come on to later on in the chat, to really kind of build the team, really kind of get the focus on it, made it a lot easier when we started talking about, kind of scary carbon targets, if you like.
Yeah.
But something else to say on that, it's very difficult. It was difficult for us, and it's difficult for a lot of companies to kind of know where to start as to where to benchmark yourself and say, right, I want to reduce this much, in terms of carbon. I want to reduce by 50% or whatever by 2030 or 2050, whatever it is. Where do you even start? Because we started this whole focus during 2020, which was a COVID year, and of course, any data from a COVID year is very different to the norm.
Yeah.
So that wasn't quite the right time. And in 2021, and we're like, everybody's trying to get back into a normal work. Is that the right time? And there's almost seems like there's an excuse every year for it not being quite the right time to set a benchmark. So, I would say we just went for it. We just used 2021 in the end as our benchmark year. And our target is to reduce 50% of our carbon emissions by 2030. And then factoring down to net zero by 2050 as well. So lots of people kind of struggle with where to start with a benchmark, and my advice really is just to start. then you've got something
Yeah.
to go from. There's no such thing as a perfect science on it.
No, exactly. I mean, one of the sort of goals, I guess, that you've set yourself for this year is reducing the hazardous chemical use, and sort of setting, like you say, those smaller targets initially, and then building up and just actually just getting started and taking that first step. So, with that in mind, reducing hazardous chemical use, we see hazardous chemicals in care settings. But how can care homes reduce this? How can care providers reduce this? And what are some of the alternatives that people might want to consider?
Well, suppliers are starting to help with this a lot, actually. The suppliers we find are starting to make kind of ranges of chemicals that are particularly eco-friendly, and they need to do it from their point of view, to prove that they're becoming more sustainable. But they also realise that the average customer these days, i.e., the average care home, wants to purchase something that is kinder to the environment, that isn't going to be, kind of causing real trouble to the waterways, etc. And even locally within the home, kind of hazardous for the staff that are using it as well. So what we've set that, I mean, that sounds like a fairly simple target. It's something that we addressed in the early days as well, but because it's moving on so quickly, there's new ranges of things out there now to solve problems that you don't need those dangerous chemicals for. So we've started by challenging all of the suppliers that we use. What is the latest thing you've got out there? We're not frightened to be guinea pigs for any of these things. If you need somewhere to test it, if you need somewhere to try it, to kind of prove the point and to get feedback, we're very much on board with that. That ties in with the fact that we're quite innovative as a company as well, not just in sustainability, but we'll have a go at most things. Why not? So by kind of challenging those suppliers, cleaning chemicals, particularly these days, you can definitely clean a whole care home without using anything that's kind of technically registered under COSH. Where you get a bit trickier are things like oven cleaners, and real kind of heavy descalers and things like that for the kitchen. So we're still looking for kind of suppliers to give us an effective solution on those. But even when you look at chemicals used by the maintenance team, like paints and things like that, again, we use all water-based paints and kind of low odor chemicals and everything there. So there's not an exact answer to any of these things, but
No.
just by asking the question, seeing what there is, trying new things,
Hmm.
and always thinking, is there something new, and is there something better for the environment that we can use? You'll find yourself moving forward.
Yeah. And you were saying that it's obviously a massive part of your sort of recruitment and you take a lot of feedback on. And obviously that feedback comes, I guess, to your suppliers primarily from those people in the care homes, working on the units and your domestic staff actually trialing those products. How have you worked with the sort of staff teams, I guess, to develop that mechanism of feedback all the way from recruitment and targeting it in your values through to actually these feedback channels with your suppliers?
Well, it's a lot easier than you would think, that's for sure. Just involve the team from day one in almost anything that you do, quite simply. And that's how we've built the whole green culture in our organization, is by kind of starting with the actual team, is like, kind of what ideas have you guys got? Who's interested? Let's go for it together, rather than creating a corporate strategy to kind of feed down and
Mhm.
then tell people what they need to do to meet that. That doesn't work. So the same with engaging people on new products or working with suppliers. Before we will do any kind of, I don't know, any kind of maths or contract negotiation or any commercials around anything, we will say, go and put that product in a home for 3 months or whatever, work with the team and see what they say. And if they say it's great, then it's great. And if they say it's terrible, then it's terrible. And it pretty much is as simple as that. The teams are on the whole, are very engaging with the idea of moving to something more sustainable. And that might be chemicals, or it might be, kind of recycled paper, or it might be kind of other products, or it might be initiatives and lots of other things. But in general, the staff, the team are very receptive to these things and
Yeah.
definitely want to help us improve. You very rarely get anyone that's actually against it, even if they're not
Mhm.
sure what they can do to help. But in principle, they're like, well, of course, that sounds like a good idea, being kinder to the
Yeah.
environment whilst maintaining our standards. So it's been quite straightforward, actually, just making sure that
Yeah.
you're talking with the team all the time.
Mhm. And I guess the sort of other point you touched on was the fact that it's a unique selling point now almost for Oakland Care. And when obviously people are looking for care options, people are just as a whole, as a population, we're becoming more sort of conscious of the environment and what contributions we make to making a sustainable future for ourselves. So in terms of your residents, are they quite actively involved in all of this as well?
To some extent, and they're very aware of what we do as a company. And I mean, you're right. It's actually how we started the whole thing 5 years ago. So we did a staff survey. We were doing resident surveys and things like that, like we always do, just to see how the business is going and what we can do to kind of improve. And we were finding that suggestions of kind of what are you doing around sustainability was starting to, come up more often. And this is where we thought we probably should start something. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of snowballed from there, from our early days a few years ago. So
Yeah.
the staff and the residents are definitely very involved, or as much as they'd like to be, in these things. I'll give you a couple of examples. So our residents probably aren't involved in, well, they're not involved in carbon accounting, of course. They're not, but we don't particularly push them around utility use. I mean, they come to Oakland Care to enjoy a nice life at a high standard, and use all the facilities we've got. We certainly wouldn't want to make anybody feel bad about having the lights on or about using their hairdryer. Of course, they're very welcome to do that. But what we often see some engagement in is some of the more kind of social aspects of sustainability. So we do a lot of volunteering across the company. We have a lot of volunteering initiatives and relationships with kind of local community groups and local charities, tree planting initiatives and things like that. And our residents often join us on those. We've had residents join us on beach cleans, on kind of community planting days and things like that, litter picks and anything like that. But they also enjoy really hearing about the things that we're doing. So when the team come back and kind of tell them about what they've been up to, we have a lot of guest speakers come to the home from like forestry commissions and places like that, local wildlife trusts, which is very engaging for the residents. It's great if they want to come and kind of listen to a talk or a presentation from a local wildlife trust. That's of interest. And what we're finding as well, one of our kind of main initiatives that we've done, again, slightly on the softer side of sustainability. So this isn't net zero or any kind of carbon accounting, but this is around biodiversity. It's a big focus for us, and we've installed kind of very interactive wildlife gardens in all of our homes. And the residents absolutely enjoy going out, exploring those areas when the grandkids come along, going out looking for bugs, etc. So, creating a kind of resource for the residents has been a real benefit to some of our initiatives, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people, a lot of providers, say that one of the big barriers to doing this is around affordability and things like that. So actually, these are almost little wins that actually we do with our residents in different ways, gardening projects, etc., that actually perhaps more people can align with and get on board with. I mean, the UK Net Zero Business Census from 2024, it did highlight 59% of organisations state that the high cost of sustainable project was a massive barrier for them. But I guess you on the resident element, there's a lot that we can be doing with our residents to get them involved. But are there any sort of quick wins or other affordable changes that you would suggest from a provider that's going through this process?
Absolutely. And we started out without any budget for this or any particular big spend in mind. And even now our investment is appropriate to the stage that we're at in sustainability. But I think there's some misconception that it needs to be very expensive, both in terms of time, in terms of money, financially expensive, and in terms of kind of time and resource to kind of get these things off the ground. There's often a misconception as well that perhaps external consultants are needed in order to form a plan, in order to even start doing anything, etc., which is simply not true. The great thing about sustainability is there's a lot of quick wins in there. It's very easy to pick up momentum with it. People enjoy it, and a lot of the ideas are kind of cost neutral, if not actually saving you money. I mean, a huge amount of sustainability is just becoming more efficient. So whether that means a bit more efficient with your utilities or splitting your waste correctly, or it's excuse me, being more efficient with kind of travel, or being more efficient with paper use, things like that. In general, if you're more efficient, you are going to probably save money, and that is a more sustainable way to live. We all waste far too much in our day-to-day lives, personally and at work. You know, the amount of things that we have and the things that we throw away is hugely wasteful and costly. So becoming more efficient is going to save you money. So if you come at it from that angle, then actually sustainability is good for your bottom line, not necessarily very cost inhibitive at the start. You're not going to start with let's spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on, you know, kind of huge I don't know, solar infrastructure across all the buildings. That's definitely shouldn't be your starting point, or even your midpoint. There's a lot of things you can do with your residents and your teams to engage people around the theme of sustainability that really are cost neutral.
Yeah. And I mean, where we're based in Norfolk, there are quite a few green business grants that are being offered. I mean, some are up to the value of like £100,000. So really, really sort of substantial money available for providers to access. Did Oakland Care access any sort of green funding or sustainability funding that's available?
That's definitely not been the secret to our success. No, these things change every day. There's new schemes available, new funding streams available. So what I would say is, you know, 100% be abreast of those and just apply, because you never know what you might get. We haven't been able to avail from any huge grants, but even some small things out there, like we're just putting some electric vehicle charging points in. We had some already, but we're just kind of straightening that out and improving that. And there's some funding available for that through a government scheme. So that's contributed towards that. We managed to get some funding for one of our wildlife gardens through a local council, kind of a wildlife trust type grant, really, to help improve biodiversity in the town. Again, we applied for that. We got a small amount of money that paid for that garden. We've had grants from the Woodland Trust, you know, donations of hundreds of trees that we've then planted in some of our land. So these aren't big things. These aren't £100,000 grants that you see in the headlines, but we've still managed to, utilize some of those things, thinking a little bit outside the box. And my advice would just be just to apply for some things. We've applied for some small grants, not thinking we really stood a chance, but actually, do you know what? They were pleased to get an application and pleased to support us. So
Yeah. And have you got any advice in terms of doing those applications? Are they something that actually probably seem more daunting than they actually are, and actually are just a lot easier to apply for? Any advice?
I think most things are easier than they come across quite often. Sustainability as a whole project is easier than you think, or more rewarding than you think. But yeah, you're filling in a form online most of the time and applying for something. As long as you do it honestly and with your absolute best knowledge, then go for it. What's the worst that can happen is that it's a no. But yeah, more often than not, we found that people on the other side are pleased to get an application from a company that actually wants to do those things. You know, the funding's available because they want companies to do that. They're not trying to block you from doing it. So look at it from that sense. You know, they actually want you. You're helping them, if you like, achieve their targets, and that's why they're offering out funding for it in the first place. So you know, there's some working together that can be done there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've touched on it already, but sort of one of the biggest barriers people say is in terms of finance, and actually financing a sustainability plan, which we've kind of highlighted doesn't need to be that much of a barrier. But have you had other providers sort of approach you with some of the other barriers that they're facing in terms of actually becoming more sustainable, or sort of perceived barriers, I guess, where they think something might be a barrier and actually you've kind of helped them overcome that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're right about the false perception of cost or time impact. That's the usual barrier. I mean, we have to be fair to the care sector. It's incredibly busy. I know firsthand it's incredibly busy, and there are incredible kind of financial pressures on the care sector at the moment. So the last thing anybody needs is, another big to-do list that's likely to cost time and money to do. But I think if you look at it like that, it's you're looking at it the wrong way. Sustainability will bring you huge business benefits that way outside of the fact that you're being more environmental. So I'll just say for a moment some of those benefits for us to hopefully can convince anyone to kind of go down this road. We have a low staff turnover. We have great retention in our teams. The teams are very engaged. The teams are out volunteering all of the time. They're doing kind of different things, and they see us doing the right thing as a business. And it's hard to put a figure on, but that's fantastic for team morale and for, like I say, for low staff turnover and all of those things. Great for the business. By doing all of these events, we do end up getting quite a lot of PR and marketing out of it. It's definitely not our only or our main reason for doing it. 100%, that's not the main reason. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do and what businesses should be doing. But of course, we're never short of a story. If marketing needs something to release or want some pictures or doing an article about something, us as in the sustainability side of the business has always got some great stuff to share. And that's fantastic. The events that we send people on is like this free team building. Plenty of companies pay a fortune to send their team on a team building day. We'll actually just sign them up for some tree planting in the rain, because that really does bring people together, and it ticks the environmental box at the same time. And like I spoke about before, if you're becoming more efficient by being sustainable, then you're probably saving some money as well. So there's huge business benefits. So people are often scared that it's actually going to have like a negative impact on the business because they are so busy doing all of these other things, or actually it could be a way to really enhance your business. But
absolutely.
I haven't really answered your question there. I appreciate it. But what a lot of people say to me is they say, we don't know where to start. That's the main barrier, is that it's a really big kind of scary thing, or what is net zero anyway? All of these kind of worries in their mind, and they don't know where to start. They often think, like I say, we need to sit around a table for months, write out a big strategy paper, probably get external consultants to approve it or help with it. And all of this is just really big. And this is why we haven't started. This is what we find. But none of that needs to be the case. The best way to start is just start. So just do something. Form a small green team, ask people who's interested, off you go, make some small changes that really kind of spark the momentum. The first thing we did was in one of our homes. This was 5 years ago. We thought, right, what can we do? So one afternoon we got an old black bucket. We wrote batteries on the side of it. We stuck it in the corner of the admin office, and then that's our battery recycling. And we take it to Tesco's every week and tip in the thing. Now that is absolute like bottom rung of the kind of complexity of initiatives that we do now. But that's where we started, and people saw that and thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, could we do this as well? How about this? How about this? How about this? And the ideas just kind of came flooding in, and we were able to do a lot of those. Now that didn't take any money, and it didn't have to write a policy to do those things either. It just started momentum, and then the rest kind of evolves itself.
Yeah, it's just showing that bit of inspiration, I guess, like you say, just putting that bucket in that corner, writing batteries on it. People engaged with it and then actually went away talking to somebody about it, or going home and saying, oh, right, let's take the batteries out. It's Christmas, take them into work. And people going, oh, wow, you got a bin at work. And it just sort of promotes that conversation as well. And other people then give us ideas that we then bring back to the table to say, oh, I was talking to so-and-so about this, and they suggested that we try this, and they've seen this in another country, or, it just opens up that conversation. And I think that conversation is actually equally as important as the work that you're actually doing hands-on, is actually just raising that awareness for environmental sustainability as well. And I think that's almost, a hidden benefit for Oakland Care, is that people actually talk about what you're doing and talk about it positively, and it's putting sustainability and the environment at the forefront of people's conversations. So a real sort of extra added win there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And that's exactly what we've, I wouldn't even say we intended. We started before knowing how big this could become and what we will really intend by it. We just thought we need to do something green. Let's just make a start. And it just took on a life of its own. And the challenge became opposite of that. We were getting so many ideas in. It's like, how do we form these properly into a policy, into a strategy of some sort? How do we decide which ones to prioritize, which ones are going to be right or wrong? We were never short of ideas. And that's because we got the team involved right from the start.
So what's one piece of advice that you would have wanted to know as an organisation back in sort of 2020, 2021, when you first started thinking and doing? What's that one piece of advice that you would have wanted to know?
I think just being reassured that we were along the right track as we started, and hopefully I can kind of reassure other people that doing things in this way, i.e., just getting started and making some changes before you've formalized a policy around it, that actually does work. Because we started that way because that's just what felt right at the time, but we didn't really have any other providers to benchmark against to say, is anyone else doing this? Does that feel like the right way to do it? Or hang on a minute, should we put the brakes on and write a policy today first? You know, we didn't write our policy for the first 6 months, and even then it was only 2 sides of A4 before it kind of grew over the years. So I think, you know, if we'd have had some reassurance or some kind of peer support in those early days, that would have really helped us. We weren't in a position back then to have that, but now there are many care groups and other sectors, you know, making headway with this. So don't be frightened to ask for support to others. Ask who else is on the same journey as you, who else is kind of brave enough to start and just start together. I think that would have been very helpful in the early days for us. But the one piece of advice now looking back that I would definitely give to anyone that's starting is definitely form a green team, a green committee, a green group, whatever you want to call it throughout your business. And this is not by appointing people. Don't say you are now a green champion, you are now a sustainability officer or something like that throughout the business, because everyone's busy and they don't want an extra job. But if you say, who's got an interest, who out there is interested in sustainability, has got some ideas about how we could be more environmentally friendly and wants to share them, then you will find people volunteer, and you very quickly get a small green committee, as we call it, or a green group, green champions, and they will help you massively. Not only help you with ideas, but they will help push you to keep going. Then the pressure will be on from them as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess in terms of that peer support, Oakland Care, obviously, like I say, they sort of lead the way in sustainability. We see a lot of what they do. If anyone listening to this sort of wants to reach out to you or reach out to Oakland Care for, you know, some peer support or a bit of a discussion, how can they do that?
Certainly. Well, they can certainly add an inquiry on our website. So we're oaklandcare.com. We've got a whole sustainability page on there as well, but we've also got, you know, kind of a chat box and an info inbox where you can send a query through or ask for, you know, a chat. I'm happy to pick up the phone to anyone and talk about their journey. Always very happy to do that. We're across all the social medias as well. So we're on Instagram at Oakland_Care, Facebook, of course, TikTok at Oakland Care, and LinkedIn, just search for Oakland Care. And feel free to send us a message on kind of any of those channels, and it will get picked up. And we're always happy to chat with other providers that are doing the same.
Yeah, I think it's become obviously more of a priority for providers now that CQC have brought it into their sort of scale of things. And again, obviously that being quite ambiguous at the moment, providers are sort of having to find their feet without any sort of clear structure quite on what it is that they're looking for. And has it been something that in any of your sort of CQC inspections that you've had in your services that's sort of been acknowledged or looked at?
Yeah. So I mean, CQC are starting to have a look at it as they come into the homes, but you're quite right. They're probably not quite sure themselves about how that's going to look in the longer term. So we've never tried to be reactive to what is on a CQC audit, if you like, or, you know, kind of on a list of questions for their inspection. But by just taking what is, you know, kind of an obvious holistic approach to sustainability and embedding it and have lots of different things going on, we find that we can easily answer CQC's questions as well as anyone else's, and provide evidence for whatever they need. So I would say don't necessarily wait for CQC to provide the perfect to-do list. No, get started anyway on your own, and you'll find you're doing enough to meet those goals. I would say as time goes on, if you can start with some kind of framework, it's helpful. We used the Green Mark framework early in the early days. Just give us like 100-point to-do list of what being sustainable means, and it was quite rewarding to be able to tick those things off as we did them. It's helpful to have some kind of framework. There's lots of things out there. They're not necessarily high cost.
Yeah, brilliant. So thank you so much for coming on and speaking to us and speaking to me on the Care Corner. So I guess it's just over to you. Is there anything else in terms of sustainability or environmental sort of support that you want to talk about? Or over to you.
Thanks, Rosie. No, I mean, just to say to anyone that is listening, just absolutely, if you're interested enough to listen to this, then you're obviously interested enough to get started. So don't be frightened to just absolutely go for it. reach out to some local community groups and local charities, and like I say, kind of wildlife trusts and things, and see how you can link up with them and help each other. It's rewarding for your team, it's great for your business, and yeah, it's just the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And at Affinity Care Advisory, we can support with that. We have created, like Aaron said, there's checklists and guides out there, and we've created our own Getting Started sustainability checklist that you can just go onto our website and download from there, just to take that first initial step. Like Aaron said, it's just pushing over that first boundary, not thinking this is a big colossal task. It's going to take lots of time and money. Think small, build big. And environmental sustainability will come. It's really important for our future, so something definitely we've all got to be thinking about.